Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is your girl, Angel Baby. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, you guys, we are back on the Naziah Harris case. 13-year-old Naziah Harris, last seen January 9th, 2024. The man responsible for her disappearance is 42-year-old Jarvis Butts. He was dating her aunt Shannon at the time of her disappearance, and the couple also shares 5 children together. Now, today, you guys, we're going to be going over more testimony. I'm going to be giving you my thoughts and opinion on the testimony of Cordell Wright, aka King. Now, King was a business partner of Jarvis Butts, and his testimony might be the most important testimony of everyone's. Why? Because King was there with Jarvis and Naziah at the last hours of her life. Now, even though Naziah Harris was never found, there is overwhelming evidence that suggests that Naziah Harris may no longer be with us, you guys. Now, police found Naziah's jacket and Naziah's jumpsuit in the woods, but no Naziah. It's been a year, you guys, and still no Naziah. Now, I want to start with this conversation between King and Jarvis that was recorded when Jarvis was behind bars. Now, Jarvis is asking King specifically, go into the truck and I want you to look behind his seat and I want you to grab that cell phone. At first, it sounds like King was kind of hesitant, but then he said, okay. And then from the moment he said, okay, it sounded like King was a yes man to Jarvis. I don't know, but something ain't right about this King. I believe that this man knew more than what he's saying. When King was asked, did he get the cell phone? He says that he did not retrieve the phone. The phone was not there. I don't know if I'm buying it. Now, King was asked, were there ever any children in the shop when you were there? He said yes, sporadically. And he said it would be Naziah, Jarvis's daughter, and sometimes his sons. And he made it seem like it was always the boys with the girls. And we know that is not true, because Shannon Harris testified on one occasion. Jarvis gave her a call and said that he specifically wanted Naziah and his daughter to go down to the shop to clean. King testified that he never seen anything inappropriate. I do not believe that, because it seems as if Jarvis was out in the open with this nastiness. One of the cousins testified that she witnessed Jarvis, being inappropriate with Naziah, having relations with her on 2 separate occasions. So if he would be open enough to do it in front of children, come on now. You know that he did it in front of King. King ain't no fool. He knows what's going on. And besides, it seems like King and Jarvis were sharing everything. They were sharing a business. They were sharing money. Hell, they were even sharing women. Do you guys know that King was dating Shannon Harris? Yeah, that's right. He was dating Shannon Harris in 2022, y'all. King was asked, did Jarvis have a problem with that? Did it cause any tension? King said no. So if that is true and Jarvis was okay with it, I wouldn't be surprised if they were both doing stuff. They like sharing everything. And I mean everything. Not just that, Jarvis' sister testified that she went up to the shop and she saw Naziah there. And she asked her brother, who is this little girl? And Jarvis said, that is King's niece. Now, if Jarvis was so quick to just lie like that around King, in front of King, I mean, who knows? His sister could have just been like, start asking King questions about his niece, and King could have been like, that's not my niece. That's why I really feel like King was covering for Jarvis, helping him get away with this stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was participating. So now we're going to get to January 9th. On January 9th, King said he left home at 6 a.m. because he has a work pass between 6 and 9. He's on that little work furlough. He's a criminal, things like that. So he was out at 6 a.m. He made it to the shop about 8:30. So I'm wondering, what was this man doing between 6 and 8:30? 2.5 hours. I'm just curious. He's supposed to be out working, but he didn't make it to work until 8:30. I'm just saying. Okay, he makes it to work. It's a normal day. And that's when the Jaguar comes in. Now, the Jaguar is King's son's grandma's car. Okay. So that car gets towed in. They start working on it. They need to go get some parts. By the time they come back from getting parts, that's when they spot Naziah. At that moment, that's when Jarvis says, "There's my niece." King says, "Where?" He says, "Right there." So they pull over. They pick up Naziah. At that point, they go back to the shop. Naziah stays in the car with Jarvis for a little bit. King says he hops out the car. Now I wonder what Jarvis and Naziah were discussing. Probably the plans for after they left the shop. You know, what was supposed to happen. Or what Naziah thought was supposed to happen. Which was Jarvis was allegedly supposed to bring some equipment or some recipe of some sort. So that way they can do a homemade abortion on Naziah. Evidence suggests that Naziah Harris was pregnant at the time of her disappearance, and Jarvis Butts was believed to be the father. They also believe that was the motive for Jarvis Butts to unalive Naziah Harris. King goes on to testify that after Jarvis gets out the car, Naziah Harris moves from the back seat up to the front passenger seat. It's cold outside, so she turns on the heat, you guys. The car is on. And that brings me to exactly what I was saying about her grandmother, Annette Harris. It was cold outside that day, that night, and she just went to sleep. She didn't even report Naziah to the cops until the next day. King says at that point, Naziah was just on her cell phone. So yeah, on her cell phone, you guys, and Naziah has not been on social media in over a year. So that just goes to tell us that she is not here anymore. I mean, teenagers cannot go without their social media. At some point in time, King says that the car ran out of gas, so they had to stop what they were doing and they had to push the truck to get gas. King said at that point he asked Jarvis, "Were you going to take Naziah home? Because this is a distraction. Like we had to stop what we were doing to get more gas in the car." King says that Jarvis looks at him and says no, he's not going to take her home. So at some point in time, they are done with the car and they're going to take the car back to King's son's grandma's house to save her some money. So King said he got in his car and Jarvis and Naziah got into the Jaguar that they just fixed. So they had to drive to Ypsilanti, and the whole time Jarvis and Naziah, they are in that Jaguar. Lord knows what they're talking about. Only God, Jarvis, and Naziah knows. So they get there, with the car, and there's some relatives there. And, they ask, "Who is that little girl?" King says that is Jarvis's niece. So they're there for about 15 minutes. Then they go back to the shop because King has to be back by 9 o'clock. So they all get into King's car and they drive. King said there's no conversation because they're listening to music on the way there. King says once they get to the shop, they divvy up the money, they sort out the receipts, and then King leaves. He says when he leaves, Naziah and Jarvis are still at the shop. And he says that was the last time he saw Naziah. He hasn't seen her or heard from her since. He also says that conversation that we heard about the cell phone is the last time he spoke to Jarvis. And I believe that is because he's incarcerated and he can't speak to Jarvis. That's what I truly believe. I believe that King needs to be investigated as well. I believe he helped cover it up. I really do. I feel like this man, he really needs to be looked at closely. So does Shannon Harris and Annette Harris. King also testified that on January 10th, the night after Naziah went missing, Jarvis did not show up at the shop. He said he spoke to Jarvis a couple of times on the phone, but Jarvis did not come in. And not just that, Jarvis never mentioned anything about Naziah being missing, you guys. And according to Shannon Harris, on the 10th, they had already made flyers. They had even asked Jarvis to post on his Facebook. But not one time did Jarvis say, "Hey, man, my niece Naziah, she's missing." I guess Jarvis Butts really thought he was going to get away with this. Like, this is the definition of the dumbest criminal. Like, everybody's seen Naziah. He was never going to get away with this. I hope this man never sees the light of day again.